Well, right now, some major military moves in the Persian Gulf, with the Pentagon reportedly building a missile radar station at a so-called secret site in Qatar. Fox News has yet to confirm that, but we have confirmed the Navy will conduct some massive mine-sweeping exercises in the region in just a few short months from now. All this coming one day after a deadly altercation in the waters off Dubai. A U.S. ship opening fire on a small boat racing towards it after that boat ignored repeated warnings to turn back. Joining us now, Joe Sestak, a retired Vice Admiral of the U.S. Navy, spent quite a bit of time in the Persian Gulf. He also served 2 terms in Congress. And also with us, retired Captain Chuck Nash. He served with the Navy for 25 years. He's also a Fox News military analyst. Nice to have you both with us today.
Good to be with you, Jen.
Nice to be with you.
Captain Nash, I'd like to start with you on these mine-sweeping exercises. Sometimes those exercises are called war games. What exactly are we aiming to do?
Well, the Fifth Fleet has had a contingency plan for decades to keep the Straits of Hormuz open. And one of the critical things that the Iranians could do to close those straits is to hold it hostage, if you will, by surface-to-surface missiles fired from the shoreline and or seed naval mines into the waters of the Persian Gulf and the Straits of Hormuz. So as any part of a contingency plan, the U.S. Navy has to include in that the ability to sweep those waters clear of those mines. And that's why the Navy has exercised that capability, funded that capability, and has beefed up that capability recently.
Congressman, you were most recently in the Persian Gulf in the early 2000s as you were deployed to that area. Did you do this as well?
Yes, we conducted operations there with the Gulf Cooperative Council states in order to make sure that we were prepared to address this issue. This is a type of asymmetric warfare. The Iranian...
What is asymmetric warfare?
It means that they buy very cheap stuff that can do great damage and take us a lot of time, if we don't want that damage to be done, to clear them. So they have over 2,000 pretty sophisticated but relatively inexpensive mines to put into transit lanes that are only a couple miles wide there in the Straits of Hormuz. It would take us months in order to clear them. If we don't destroy the fishing vessels that often drop them off, cheap fishing vessels first. Second, they have several hundred missiles that can land in Saudi Arabia, into Israel, even to southern Turkey. And that's why as you said at the beginning of this interview, we are putting out there some better missile acquiring radar, and why this second aircraft carrier battle group that is going to come into the Gulf will have additional guided missile destroyers that can then shoot down these missiles as they come across. But it is basically a missile against a missile. That's pretty tough. So you can procure cheaper stuff that is hard to defend against. Can we do it? You bet. But what will it take? Long in time, heavy in assets. This is a very difficult environment.
Let me ask Captain Nash about this, because obviously, according to the Congressman's description of this, Captain Nash, we're taking the Iranians pretty seriously. I mean, there's a real serious concern about them putting mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think they are taking us as seriously?
I think they are, but at the same time, the West has let Iran skate, if you will, for decades. And it's been U.S. administration after U.S. administration. It always seems that the Iranians do something belligerent. We get real mad at them. Strong statement in the United Nations, sanctions, and then all of a sudden there are 20 exceptions to the sanction rules. So the Iranians have been like a very bad kid growing up in the neighborhood, where the people in the neighborhood look at this kid and go, you know, we don't like what we're seeing here. Well, now all of a sudden, that kid who's been acting out more and more over the decades now is a teenager and has really serious weaponry. And now the neighborhood's really scared. So we in the West and those in the neighborhood have sort of brought this on themselves.
Interesting, Congressman. This dysfunctional child, as Captain Nash could put it, is putting it now, could potentially have a nuclear weapon, which is, changes the stakes of these things. And continuing that analogy, if you will, if there's no threat of something to come when a child is misbehaving, then they're never going to change. So we can send 20 aircraft carriers to this area. If they don't really believe that we're going to use them, then will we ever change this pattern of behavior? And how do we do that?
You're absolutely right. The use of our military has to, when it's used, be done in the correct manner and be successful to have credibility. But the overarching issue which Chuck brings up is Should we, over administrations, have been putting crippling economic and diplomatic, financial, travel sanctions upon Iran much earlier? Yes. Now, this has occurred over this past year. As you well know, the value of the currency in Iran has dropped like a rock. Inflation is out of sight. Unemployment's going overboard. It can't even export its oil now on its own ships right now because we have all gotten Lloyd's of London to say they're not safe to go into foreign ports. So finally, to Chuck's points, we're trying to do what's right. Put devastating economic, financial sanctions, because I believe the military option should never be off the table, but it should be on the back of the table. I wish, as he does, that we had done this with the support of the EU, China, and others much earlier. I want to make sure before we put men and women into harm's way, however, that we first tried to resolve this diplomatically. Can't tell you it's going to work, but that's why we are being prudent to build up our military to make sure if we have to do it, we do it well.
Congressman, it's interesting you bring up the oil tankers and whether or not we're crippling Iran. We have an investigative journalist coming on our show in about an hour who says she has proof that the Iranians are disguising their ships and getting the oil out of the country and continuing to do business. So this is a topic.
You know, it's interesting. You're absolutely right on that point. She has 39 oil tankers now because they can't go into foreign ports, and nobody will carry Iranian oil because we won't give them insurance on other tankers. They are finding some of these blacklisted tankers to try to sneak them in. We've got to cut that down also.
We'll see what we can do at this point and continue to talk more about it, hopefully here, and maybe talk less about it on the national stage. Congressman Sesak, thank you so much. Captain Nash, nice to have you as well.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you.